Hello, this is Joe Standard for EDL 853. This is Module 14, the case study. So first, let's talk a little bit about the facts about the case. Uh, we have a student named Miguel. He is a football player who is injured in a game. He was left paralyzed from the waist down and is now in a wheelchair. What occurred was he took a big hit when he was throwing a touchdown in the semifinals for Nottingham High School, and he took a big hit, had a spinal cord injury. He was in the hospital a while, and he came back to school. Uh, what's going on here? Nottingham High School is not up to ADA code. There's no wheelchair access to the biology class. Miguel and his parents were guaranteed that he would be able to come back and resume studies as normal. But what happens is Miss Guzman, the counselor, changed his schedule without informing him or his parents until the day he returned. And the reason being that there was no access for his wheelchair for the biology classroom. The science class that they were wanting to put him in was not college preparatory, which went against his wishes and his parents because he wished to be college ready when he graduated high school. And the science class that they were wanting to put him in was not going to guarantee that he would be college ready or a class that counted towards it. So his parents are upset and they are threatening legal action. So some legal and ethical issues that arise from this case are that, well, first off, Miguel's college future is uncertain because of the mismanagement by Ms. Guzman. Because of the mismanagement, now it's uncertain whether or not he is receiving FAPE at this moment. He is being denied access to a classroom that denied the classroom that's going to help prepare him for life outside of school. This is in violation of ADA, 504, and IDEA. It's denying education to a student with a disability. Miguel is being discriminated against because they did not give him appropriate access to the biology class or other appropriate accommodations. They just said, look, you're not gonna be able to take this biology class because you can't get in it. And really, they didn't offer an adequate alternative for him. So what exactly happened here? Well, Miguel and his parents are being denied FAPE because all of the classrooms are not wheelchair accessible. So here's some knowns and unknowns. So first off, with the people, what we know about Miguel is he is a recently paralyzed student. He wants to go to college, but he's being denied class or possibly classes that will prepare him for college because it's not just biology class. He's just a sophomore right now, and it's just a biology class right now. But there's probably other classes that are not going to be up to code as well. Also, his parents, we know they're threatening legal action. We know Ms. Guzman, the counselor, who she removed Miguel from his classroom and that she did not handle the situation well. Principal, myself, I know about the situation. The only contact I've had with the student is giving an award to the student. And we are introduced to a lawyer as well who represents Miguel and his parents, who is threatening legal action. Some unknowns. We don't know what else Miguel's going to need. There is no official examination of whether or not maybe he has PTSD or he might need some counseling. This was a pretty traumatic event, and just for him to be placed right back in the classroom as if nothing occurred is really almost not the best idea. Are the parents open to an alternative accommodations? As long as he is receiving his credit for biology, are they open to other avenues to help their son? Another unknown, Ms. Guzman, why did she not contact the principal or teacher prior to removal of the student? That should have been an open communication. It shouldn't have just been something that happened right then and there. That should have been something that she was actively contacting the principal and the teacher about to see what they can plan instead of just making this decision on her own. And the principal, myself, did I know about the schedule change beforehand? Did I know about the accessibility issues of the biology classroom? I'm feeling I might have, but then again, it was not stated. A little bit about the place. This does take place at Nottingham High School. This was a building that was built in the 1950s. A fourth of the building is not up to code. So a good chunk of this building, is not ADA compliant. It's in Dover. It does have mobile units. It has great community support, and it has about 3,200 students. Um, some unknowns. What classes are affected by lack of compliance? Is it all science classes? Is it a mix? What is the structure in place, physical structure in place for the classes, and how many of them are actually affected and which classes are as well? Ability to hold class in different rooms. Is there ability to change classrooms up at this point? Demographics is unknown. I don't know if this is a wealthy or if it's a poor district. It's unknown whether it is urban, suburban, or rural. And finally, are all biology classes located in the same area, and are they ADA compliant? These are pretty much some simple unknowns that really need to be answered, especially, which classes are not being compliant. All right, next let's talk about the known and unknown facts about the program. We know that it is a public school. We know that it is a high school. We know that our student is a sophomore, and the general education is college preparatory. Okay, some unknowns. Nothing's known about the special education department. Nothing's been mentioned about anyone from the department coming over. There's no discussion about whether or not we need a psychologist involved. Not much has been discussed, not even on whether or not should the student be evaluated now. There's no known alternative school, no known online courses to take, or maybe there's an alternative high school within there that certain students can take. Um, and really, another unknown that kind of gets me is staff's knowledge of FAPE and ADA. Because based off of the responses from the counselor, it makes you kind of wonder whether or not all staff members are a little bit unclear of FAPE and ADA laws. So the stakeholders that are going to be affected by this, a lot really, especially the financially, because you're going to have to make sure, like if it's not this school year, then the next school year, or it has to be on a plan, but it's going to cost financially because they're going to have to put money into this building, this old building, for it to be compliant because they can no longer have just a fourth of compliancy. It's unacceptable because this is a sophomore student who's going to continue going through, and he's not going to be the only one that comes through there who's going to need accessibility help. And the community support may dwindle on this. The fact that this has not been taken care of when they were starting to go through getting everything up to compliancy, the support might dwindle. All stakeholders would have an important stake in this outcome because it's their students that go there. It's their pride on the line. So yes, they have skin in the game, whether that's community, whether that is business people. There's a lot of skin in the game at this point to get this remedied. Only stakeholders involved right now are Miguel, his parents, the principal, me, the counselor, and the lawyer. Um, I would think that we'd probably want to get in the superintendent involved in this. So maybe we can start working with the board members as well. But I think as of right now, enough is known for me to make this decision, just so we can quickly fix Miguel's situation to ensure that he is receiving a fair and adequate education. Uh, but eventually, especially like fairly quickly, we're going to have to get the superintendent involved because this is a matter that's going to have to be fixed for all the remaining classrooms, not just for biology. So some possible options that I weighed were, well, first off, not making any decisions or taking action. Well, that's not going to help the situation at all. So I'm going to try to stay away from that. You can't just do nothing in this situation. You can't ignore it. It won't go away. This student is needing proper education and they're not receiving it. So doing nothing is completely out of line. Make biology room ADA compliant. This is a good idea, but the issue is it's in the middle of the school year and there's going to be construction. Do we have funds to even do this? That's going to be a major sticking point right there, is time and money. And I don't think we have either one. We might be able to get some ramps maybe, but in the end, this is not really the best option. We could move biology class to an ADA compliant room. This is a pretty good alternative. It's kind of a quick fix though, because that's going to displace maybe specific equipment and everything, but it would remedy the situation and ensure that Miguel does have an accurate, accurate place to get an education. We can offer alternative options like online classes or alternative classroom. Uh, this is going to cost resources for the school, though. We can offer to transport the student to another school. That's another cost situation. Um, we could physically carry him up and down the stairs. Well, that's going to be a legal issue, especially when you drop him going up and down the stairs or a student hurts themselves by doing that. Could use a mobile unit. There are plenty of mobile units on campus, so this could work fairly well. Like I said, the only issue would be possibly moving equipment would be the only issue. Buying a new mobile unit, if there's just no room because there is 3,200 kids in an older school building, maybe buying a new mobile unit would be a good idea. But the issue would be financial cost. Does the district have the money to spend on a new mobile unit? So the best possible option moving forward is going to be moving biology class to an ADA compliant room. It's just a quick fix that we can help our student Miguel so to make sure that he is getting the education that he is needing. Why would we say to move into an ADA compliant room? Well, for me, it's cost effective and there's no wait for construction. It's just we talk to the teacher, we talk to another teacher, and we see what moves we can make because it has to be done. This is going to save the community from a lengthy trial, and it will address ADA compliance of all classrooms at some point. We will have to address ADA compliance of all classrooms with the superintendent and the school board. That is a must. Whatever option that I choose, it must address ADA compliance in the classroom. We must address that. There's no way around it. It's got to be discussed with him or her and the school board. Information will be presented to stakeholders at a board meeting. It's important to keep those that are involved in our school district in the loop of what's happening. And like I said, discussion with the superintendent is needed drastically because it is ridiculous that we're at this point in the school's lineage and it's still not ADA compliant. So to implement this plan, I need to make sure I inform Miguel and his parents and the lawyer on the new accommodation and whether or not they agree with it. First and foremost, they must be willing to agree to this plan. Then we need to check for an open classroom that is ADA compliant. Once we find that classroom, we need to check teacher schedules of those in the ADA compliant room because it might just be, for that one class that we'll be able to take biology into, so we can get that without having to move everything for all the classes, maybe just for that one class. Need to discuss classroom reassignment with the biology teacher as well. They need to understand that, look, we have to do this to help the student. I know I'm asking you to do a lot, but we need to do what's right for the student. Then we need to discuss room sharing with the alternative classroom teacher because we can't just come in and like, oh, you're moving. No, we have to be able to communicate with that classroom teacher that, listen, we're in a situation. I know this isn't the right time, but we're going to have to move you out or use your classroom during your plan time. We're going to have to move appropriate science equipment to the alternative room. This can be done with students. We need to put Miguel back into the class. That's always important. He needs to get in there right now. Then you need to have discussions with Ms. Gussman about being compliant and communicating because evidently Ms. Gussman is having issues with understanding ADA and IDEA and communicating with staff and with me, the principal, about changes to student schedules. She might need to be assigned professional development about how to work with students with disabilities as well. Just seems like she really needs to work on her skills. And then plan B would be having an alternative classroom, like an online classroom or maybe an alternative high school as well. So some of the components that I hit on, the first one, the building administrator evaluates multiple sources of inequality and bias in the allocation of educational resources and opportunities. I feel like I did that when I identified that a student was not getting FAPE and that I understood that not all classrooms were ADA certified. And I also understood that the student's needs for appropriate education for his chosen career path were not being met. I also identified that the counselor did not abide by state and federal laws as well. For standard component two, the building administrator cultivates the equitable use of educational resources and opportunities through procedures, guidelines, norms, and values. I feel I did that because I understood the need for Miguel to receive a proper education. I came up with a plan to move the biology classroom to an alternative location, and I also discussed ADA compliance with superintendent and board members. The next standard component, the building administrator advocates for equitable access to educational resources and opportunities that support the educational success and well-being of each student. I showed this by the fact that I looked at alternatives to ensure that the student was receiving an appropriate education. I came up with a plan to address parent concerns. I contacted the superintendent and school board about the ADA compliancy issue. And for standard component four, candidate uses his or her comprehensive understanding and capacity to undertake and implement this work within a school setting. I show this by getting Miguel back into the biology classroom, by continuing to work on ADA compliance and meeting of state and federal laws. Well, that is it for my case study. I want to thank you for watching. Please have a wonderful day.